Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing something a little bit different. We're talking about the 5 things that I wish I knew before I started sim racing. Now these are going to be completely anecdotal, so it's not just like a generic things that people talk about. This is like genuine things that happened to me, or things that I bought, things that I learned about, where when I actually put it into my racing or into my thought processes, it actually made a difference. So hopefully you gain something from this. If you do, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more of this. And on top of that, also leave your little tips and tricks down below, some things that you learnt, so other people can read them and, you know, we can go from there. Okay, so tip number 1, and this one's probably going to be the most generic tip on the list, but we have to get to it because it's probably the most important one, because it leads to a lot of frustration and stuff like that. And that is that mistakes are okay. And previously, I didn't think that. Like, to be completely honest, I used to spin out and I used to absolutely crack it. Like, I'd be so upset, you know, I'd feel like I wasted 20 minutes of my life, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, whatever it could be, however long that race was. And, you know, you make one mistake in sim racing and it could be the end of your race. It's that simple. You can pull it back, but most of the time, if it's a very competitive lobby and everyone's pretty much the same pace, if you crash, you're out. And for me to deal with that, it was hard. It made me scared to actually race because I didn't want to make a mistake and say lose I rating or grid rating, whatever you're on. And it basically completely ruined my enjoyment of sim racing, to be completely honest with you. And what changed for me is understanding probably one thing that was like, it's very basic, but it made sense to me. And that is that I'm not a professional and I'm not getting paid to do this, right? So why the hell am I getting upset? At the end of the day, I love competing. I've always been a competitive person with gaming. I've played competitive FPS games. I've played soccer when I was a kid. Now, you know, I found this passion in sim racing and I want to compete and I want to be as good as possible, but I'm not getting paid for it. So if I crash and make a mistake and, you know, it's not $10,000 on the line, who cares? At least I'm enjoying the actual fight and the process of learning and driving. Because that's, at the end of the day, a lot of us get into sim racing, you know, because we're racing on these controllers and stuff on Forza and Gran Turismo, and then, you know, we try out a wheel or we buy a wheel and we're like, damn, like driving is so fun. Just remember why you actually started as well. And on top of that, when you do make a mistake or if someone hits you, whatever it is, just analyze it too, because that is like one of the biggest things everyone always says in any type of competitive sport. Watch your replays, learn and see if you actually did anything wrong. You know, if you made a crash, why did you make the crash? Try and avoid repeating it. But yeah, that's it for tip number 1. We're going to go now to tip number 2. Okay, so tip number 2, and this is diving a bit more into the competitive side of things, like if you really want to compete and be quick, and that is you should probably be practicing more than you're actually racing. And I know it sucks and it sounds boring, but just like, you know, any sport, you know, say soccer, for example, I'd have 5 training sessions a week and then I'd do a game on the weekend. So you're spending, you know, maybe 7 times the amount of time practicing compared to the actual game itself. It's the same with sim racing. If you've got a 20-minute race and you really want to be fast and you want to be quick, you know, with me, myself, I'll spend 2 or 3 hours practicing. And I never used to do that. I used to just, you know, sign up for races here and there and be like, why am I spinning out? Why am I coming last? Why is everyone so quick? And then when I decided to actually take it more seriously and practice, I was instantly getting better results. And the main thing is consistency, because most of the time, especially when you're starting out with sim racing, you tend to take yourself out, and even if someone hits you, it's still more than likely your fault. And I know it sucks to say that, but again, it goes with the whole thing of making mistakes. But you know, if you practice and you become consistent, you can do a full race stint in practice without actually coming off the track. Your odds of finishing in the top half of that grid just, you know, they amplify drastically. And to add to that, especially when you get into like the real like top echelon of, you know, top split iRacing and stuff like that. And the fact is that these people, a lot of the people at the top, they treat it as a sport. They don't treat it as a hobby. And, you know, if you want to get there, you also got to treat it as a sport too. Now, the hobby part is fine, and, you know, a lot of people don't have time. Like even me, you know, some weeks I won't have time to, you know, practice and do this and do that, so I can't expect to have crazy results. So it's more of a hobby at that point. But if, you know, if I really want to concentrate on this race and it's a very important one to me, then, you know, you got to treat it like a sport and you got to actually do proper practice. You want to make it scheduled and structured. You don't want to just sit there and do hot laps. You want to figure out, all right, if I need to work on trail braking or corner entry, focus on that for that, 20-minute practice session. They don't have to be hour, 2 hour longs, just make them short and quick, just focus on little things, little focus points of information that you're trying to learn, and then you go from there. Okay, so that's it for tip number 2. Now we're going to tip number 3. Practice leads to consistency, right? And tip number 3 is how to actually be consistent in a race. Now, I was doing races, and like I was saying, I was spinning out, I was making mistakes, I wasn't getting consistent lap times and stuff like that, and I was wondering, how the hell do I fix this? Like in practice or whatever it is, or qualifying, I can get good laps in, but when I'm in the race, it kind of all falls apart. And I was searching the internet, nothing really popped up or anything, and then I found a Reddit post that was saying, I wish I could find that and give credit to the person that said it, but they were basically saying that you should always race at 90% pace. And what they mean by that is, let's just say you're at Monza on ACC, and your times is they're 1:48. That's like your best time is a 1:48, whatever it is, and then you can hit that maybe 1 in every 5 laps. The other 3-4 laps you might be making a mistake here and there, and you might get a 1:49. You might lose a second in that mistake. Well, if you race at 90% pace and you're always racing at a 1:48.5, whatever it is, then those mistakes that you make are less likely to happen, because you're not pushing, you're not at a full 100% qualifying pace, you're not trying to get your lap record, whatever it is. And that 1:48.5 consistently, that's all we really need in racing, don't we? Like, the aim of the game is to go around the track as quick as possible. It's not to race other cars, it's not to do this, it's not to do that. At the end of the day, you want your car to be further in distance compared to the person behind you, and that is based on time and speed. Now, obviously, if it's the last couple of laps remaining and you've got someone on your ass, then push. Yeah, you don't stay at 90%, take the risk. But at the end of the day, it is all just risks. If you're in the middle of the race and you've got no one really around you, there's no reason to push at 100%, because the odds that you make a mistake and ruining the rest of the race are pretty high. Like, they just rise exponentially at that point. So yeah, that is tip number 3. Don't race at full speed. Be 10%, 5% lower, and stay consistent. Okay guys, so going on to tip number 4, and this is the only tip that has to do with equipment or money or anything like that, but you don't need all this crazy stuff to be quick at sim racing. But what really will help is if you get a good set of load sub pedals. And you don't need a direct drive wheel, you don't need a motion sim, you don't need butt kickers, you don't need VR or anything like that. But if you have a good set of load sub pedals, which is basically a pedal where you press it and your braking percentage is based on pressure, not position. Like a potentiometer pedal is what you get in most of the basic pedal sets, where basically you've got 0% and then 100%, and then you got to use your little foot to get your percentages. Whereas a load sub pedal is you press it and then you can slowly release, and it's so much easier to get consistent brake pressures like that. If you haven't tried it before, you don't really know how it feels, but when you do try load sub pedal, like, it is so easy to get your 10, 15, 20% brake pressures that you need for different corners. Again, a simple tip, this is very short, this one, but you don't need all the crazy stuff. But if you are going to buy something, if you want to take sim racing to the next level, load sub pedals are gonna basically make the big difference there. Okay guys, so tip number 5 now, and this has, I know it sounds silly, but it's true. It has probably changed my whole perspective on sim racing, and that is the fact that there are other sim racing games out there, and not even sim racing games, even arcade racing games. But you don't have to just stay with that one sim that you started off with. So for example, I started with ACC, so the Corsa Competizione, and I didn't play any other games for like 300 hours worth of sim racing. I swear, I just played that flat out because I kept watching these videos of people being like, oh, only race one car, one sim, and then you'll get really good at it, whatever it is. And realistically, I actually don't agree with that at all. Like, to start with, just to get used to the basics, it helps. But going to different sim and different cars and this and that, it builds your utility bench of your sim racing skills, if you think of it like that. Driving a BMW, driving a Porsche, driving a Ferrari, they're all different cars, they all handle differently, and you have to learn different things that then apply to all the other cars in how to drive quicker. And it works like that for other sims as well. I'll give you an example. So again, 300 hours in ACC, I tried iRacing, and within my first week or two, I felt this feeling of trail braking, turning into the corner and just perfectly feeling the car pointing, and it feels amazing. Like, it's like the proper trail braking technique, what you're meant to be feeling, yeah. And I never felt like that in ACC. Maybe once in a while, and I was like, maybe just thought something happened, but I never realized that was probably how a car should feel going into a corner. So then I go back to ACC, and I was trying different pressures, doing this, doing that, and I actually felt that feeling And I was like, damn, and now I can replicate it in ACC. And if I never went onto iRacing to do that, I would never even know that feeling was a thing, and I probably gained 3/10 by just doing that. And on top of that, like, you know, it's just more fun playing other games. Like, you don't, it's not even just for the competitive side. Like, I just started playing Assetto Corsa Rally, and that game is sick. It's awesome. You know, the new Forza's coming out, and again, it's not, you know, competitive sim racing, it's a simcade, but it's still fun. Like, you can, with all this equipment that you buy, at least try other things. Like, yeah, it costs money to buy the games and stuff like that, but, you know, you're gonna have so much more fun just experimenting, and you're gonna learn a lot more, and you might find something that you've never even thought you'd enjoy, and you do start enjoying it. And again, even in the same game, if you want to look at it like this, but let's just say you're in iRacing and you're racing GT3s, just try out Formula cars, try out oval racing. I haven't even done that yet, but I'm sure that's fun. But, you know, just try these different things and see you go. You know, there's no harm that can come to it. But yeah, guys, those are my 5 tips that I wish I knew before I started sim racing. If you enjoyed this video and learned something, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more of this. Hit that little bell button so you get notified when I upload. But on top of that, leave a comment down below again if you want to leave any tips for anyone else. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you all in the next video. See you later, guys.